like that, we are doing a spontaneous live stream, just as what this entire channel has been doing, I guess, for the past couple of days. I've done more lives than I have actual videos. Although I do drop some videos here and there, I just feel like there are certain news cycles that I may be missing out on if I don't just jump on the live stream and just straight get to it. So here's 3 topics that I'm going to give you after that 30-second intro that I gave you. Number 1, Mr. Criminal. Obviously, the snitching allegation that has been going on with Mr. Criminal, I decided, you know what? I'm going to ask him on his live chat. Because surprisingly, you got to give the man credit, right? With all of these things that are going on, he still allows himself to be noticed and accessible to the public and to his supporters, and however many of that is left. But somehow he was going to open the phone lines, and maybe perhaps somewhere down the line, I asked him a question that may have alerted him in a very negative direction. For example, I asked him flat out, straight off the bat, Lefty Gunplay mentioned you at the Cam Capone podcast, and what exactly did he say? Well, he said something to the effect that you are no longer a Sureño, you no longer are down with the blue flag, and as a result of that, they don't have your back anymore. And guess what? Mr. Criminal responded in his live chat after I asked him that. He said, man, you know what? My name is clear, or somehow just tries to nullify it and somehow diminishes my question and says something to the effect of, yeah, you know what? Just, leave that up to the lames or something to that effect. And again, no definitive answer, sort of jumps out of the entire process of trying to face it head on, but once again, being very deflective when I flat out asked him, what do you think about Lefty Gunplay thinking that you're a snitch? And once again, after that, he just decided that he was going to open the phone lines to have people call in, but then he decided, you know what, that may have set precedence on a lot of people asking some very unfavorable questions on his particular part. So that's the first topic that we're going to talk about with Mr. Criminal. The second topic is Ryan Garcia. And by the way, not within a particular order. Okay, so just keep in mind, and I have a mental note in my mind into these subjects that we're going to talk about. So Ryan Garcia retires. I'm going to give you a brief synopsis on that situation going on. A lot of people are sort of pointing out that the reason why Ryan Garcia wants to retire is for the simple fact that there are people in the commissions that might ban him for life. So it's sort of like this, right? Imagine you get fired from work, or you're on the verge of getting fired, and you decided, you know what, to save my own butt and to give a notice to my credibility, I'm going to put in my 2 weeks notice rather than just getting fired on the spot or in the coming days that I may not know about. So that's sort of what Ryan Garcia may be doing. That's the second topic. The third topic, obviously, is going to be UFC related, which is what? We're going to talk about UFC Saudi Arabia, its main event. Ikram Ali Askarov taking on Robert Whittaker. I'm going to give you a prediction on just the main event alone. Just the main event alone. I'm going to give you a breakdown on that, how we got here, and a technical breakdown of this matchup, as well as the business breakdown within the relationship of Saudi Arabia and the UFC. How much similar of that is with the UAE, and how much similar of that in ways that the Saudis have taken over boxing and given it full control of how they want to present the show. Are they going to do that with the UFC when you know that the UFC is a very plain Jane organization that, not plain Jane, but uses just solid colors, solid letters, and no extra bravado about it. In other words, no WrestleMania or Pride FC type of situations going on. So we're also going to talk about UFC 303, which is the event that's going to follow this particular weekend's event for UFC Saudi Arabia. And we're going to ask and beg the question, is this good for business? And in particular, El-Kheer, if he was to come out successful in this particular fight, and if he wasn't, guess what? It would have been all worth it, because now we saw an upset out of Jiri, who previously lost to this man, and now they are potentially 1-1 with each other. Who knows what could happen? And also the business trajectory of where El-Kheer could take this with another win. So let's start it off. First and foremost, Mr. Criminal, the first topic. Now, for those of you that don't know who Mr. Criminal is, he is what you would consider within the genre of Chicano rap, although there are some that sort of argue there is no such thing. There's either just rap, gangster rap, or hip-hop, or nothing in between. But whatever your taste palette is, or how you want to categorize things, that is who Mr. Criminal is. So he's been a rapper since the mid-2000s, very big, obviously, in the Chicano scene, but has huge followings around the world, which is indicative of his world tours that he has done. So in other words, he's been a big-time player in this particular genre, and out of nowhere, his label mate ends up unaliving a brother-in-law, goes into hiding, in which Mr. Criminal becomes complicit to that, gets pressured by the police, and then supposedly, within the allegations, snitches on his label mate, who is now doing life in prison. So that is the story that we have in front of us right now, right? Now, fast forward to 2024. A lot of people in this era of hip-hop now know how to pull out paperwork and expose it out to the internet, with the likes of Whack 100, characters like that, 1090 Jake in the hip-hop world. A lot of these guys, they go out and expose the snitches that are prevalent in the rap game, and they make content about it. And now Mr. Criminal is sort of in that same path. And there have been rumors where Mr. Criminal, according to Blue Devil Haters World YouTube, that he had gone to 1090 Jake to supposedly try and clear his name from the snitching allegations. But what he had guaranteed Mr. Criminal, 1090 Jake, was that, you know what? I can't guarantee that I can clear your name, but if I find that there's anything that is snitching going on here, that's just what's going to happen. And then there was some pay discrepancy going on, but I urge you to look that up. So I go onto Mr. Criminal's live stream, which, by the way, surprisingly enough, the nerve of this guy, with all of the controversy surrounding him being a known snitch, he still goes on to his live stream. So I go in there, and by the way, he goes and responds to me a lot, even before all this snitching stuff went on, right? I was a very big supporter of Mr. Criminal. So I took the opportunity, being that there were people before me that had already done phone calls and asked him about the snitching allegation. Guess what he says to me after I told him about, or asked him about, the Lefty Gunplay interview where he talked to Cam Capone saying that he was no longer a Sureño. What does Mr. Criminal say to me? He dismisses it by saying, you know what, leave that up to the lames. I don't give a F, or this and that, right? And then just goes on to steer the conversation in another way. And you can look at his videos from last night, from June 19th. You would sort of notice that this man looked extremely nervous. Very nervous, because it's like as if he knew what was going on. Think about this, right? All the people that made you who you are. And I've seen guys like this. By the way, don't forget to like and subscribe before I tell you what type of guys that I've seen that are like Mr. Criminal, who have snitched and have done the things that he's done. And by the way, I'm not here to judge one man's actions or the other. I'm just here to give you guys a news report, which, by the way, a news report that I'm now a part of, because I done asked the questions to Mr. Criminal. What do you think about Lefty Gunplay's comments towards you? And once again, being very dismissive, and not only dismissive, sort of deflects the question away, diminishes it, says something to the effect of leave it up to the lames, for whatever that means, and then chalks it up into other conversations. And that's just the reality of it. So, I gotta be honest with you. it is interesting. I don't have a dog in the fight either way, but that's Mr. Criminal's life and the people that he has affected along the way. Or for all we know, there may be a lot of things that we don't know about, and we're all just speculating, and that is the reason why I beg to ask the question. So if you're curious about Mr. Criminal and my interactions with him on his live chat and what had happened, asking him about the snitching allegation and asking him about the Lefty Gunplay comments where he said he was no longer a Sereno, rewind back from the beginning of this stream at the 1 minute point. Because at this point right now, I'm going to talk about Ryan Garcia and his retirement and what it means. So here it goes. Like what I said in the beginning of the stream, Ryan Garcia is retiring based on the fact that he wants to save face. You see, there have been failed drug tests that could potentially ban him for life. Now, here's the thing. Boxing drug testing is not even all that extensive in and of itself. However, Ryan Garcia blatantly went out and took substances that were extremely illegal to the point where he just knew it was as if he was going on a suicide mission based on knowing that he was never going to come back after this fight, which is the only way that you can speculate how he could take drugs that can be so easily detected in a sport like boxing where the detection of drugs is almost non-existent, just based on the weakness of the prevalence and the rate that they do it. Obviously not in the way that they do UFC fighters, the way that they harass them, the way that they get them for 50 tests in a year. You can't do that with boxers. So you got to ask yourself, why did Ryan Garcia fail? And it only points to going on to a suicide mission that I had just mentioned to you about, meaning that he knows he's in and he's never going to come back ever again. And as a result of that, he decided, you know what, I'm just going to take these drugs, beat Devin Haney, who's on a hot streak right now, who's a world champion, even though I'm not going to fight for a world title, but rather just allow myself to potentially get caught but still win. And by the way, guess what's happening right now from the Ryan Garcia supporters? They're looking at it like, hey, you know what? We saw the fight. You can't tell us anything. But then you got to beg the question of the competitive integrity and the competitive architecture that comes into boxing. Oh, well, it's not about weight because it's just a few pounds. Does it really matter in a real fight? But here's the thing. They're not in a real fight, are they? Because if they were in a real fight, they would be allowed to kick. They would be allowed to do mixed martial arts. But that's not the case. So that is what's happening with Ryan Garcia in his particular case right now as to why he is retiring and saving face from the humiliation of a possible lifetime ban. And that's all that there really is to it in this particular Ryan Garcia case. Or is there? Because I gave you one side of the story. This is the story that I just relayed to you right now. And if you want to rewind back and look at everything that I just explained to you with Ryan Garcia, the majority of Ryan Garcia haters, or the ones that are against him, are going to stand exactly this close with me on that particular subject, right? Not too close, but close enough to say, you know what? The majority of what you're saying is right, but I got this to say or this and that. Somewhere within that same time frame, it's all the same, right? But here's the difference. The humanistic side of boxing, it's dangerous. And if you want to go in there with a lethal weapon, really that's your own choice in what you believe is good for your own defense. So in other words, what am I trying to say? Ryan Garcia went in there knowing that he's going to war, going on a one-stop mission, knowing that he's never going to come back in boxing because of the drugs that he needs to take in order to beat Devin Haney. And as a result, this is what we got. Instead of getting a lifetime ban, which is where this whole entire thing was going to take itself, Ryan Garcia decided, you know what, I'm just going to retire right off the bat right here, and I'm going to leave it at that. Go out on top with a win against a world champion, even though I never really officially won the belt. So that's where Ryan Garcia is at right now. So now, on to the next topic. If you want to take a look at the Ryan Garcia topic, the Mr. Criminal topic, rewind back 4 or 5 minutes behind from here, or rewind back all the way from the beginning from 1 to 10 minutes where I talk about that subject. Right now, on the 15-minute mark, or the 15:30, let's put it on the 15:30 mark, I'm going to talk about UFC Saudi Arabia, Ikram Ali Askarov taking on Robert Whittaker. And what do I think about this matchup with the main event for Saudi Arabia? Here it goes. I believe that it's going to go to a scorecard. For who? Who knows? But don't be surprised if Ali Askarov gets a decision. Now, why am I coming up with that conclusion that Ali Askarov could win a split decision? For the same reason why I'm telling you Robert Whittaker can either win a clear unanimous decision or a split decision as well, because this fight is going to be very difficult within the clinch positions, within the cage positions, but also mutual takedowns on both parties where they're both going to try to outdo each other on the wrestling department. And not only that, as a result, maybe Ali Askarov at some point is going to get rocked because he's going to get tired. His striking stamina is not going to be at the level of Robert Whittaker with the experiences that he's had in the past championship fights. So in other words, what I see out of this whole situation is a very close contest. But others will look at it where, you know what, Robert Whittaker is going to run through this guy. Well, not so fast. Why do you say that? Well, because a lot of people bet fights, predict fights, and analyze fights through past occurrences. And in particular, Askarov being knocked out by Khamzat not too long ago, okay? In the regional scenes. But again, like I said, if you are in the regional scenes, as opposed to, let's say, the pro level of the UFC, it's a completely different animal. You see, a lot of people change when they move up to a certain level, right? You can even see this in college sports, for example. There have been a lot of guys that were drafted or have been taken in by pro sports teams, whether that's the NFL or the NHL or the NBA, and even in the UFC, right? So what you see all of that in common is maybe they had mediocre college careers, but then when they hit the pros, all of a sudden they become world champion caliber fighters. Frankie Edgar is a great example of that. Frankie Edgar will tell you that he always came up short in the wrestling tournaments, first place, second place, got to qualify for the FILA tournament, which is an international freestyle wrestling organization, but he never hit the championship mark until he hit the UFC. And there's a lot of former college basketball players that moved into the NBA that can give you that same exact story. So here it goes. Ali Askarov, I think, has improved tremendously since he came to the UFC. And here's the thing. Now he trains with Khabib. You've seen what happened with Bilal Muhammad and the changes that he's going to really present when he goes into UFC Manchester 304. However, when you take a look at Ali Askarov, the only man that's really defeated him was Khamzat. And one has to think, he can really give Robert Whittaker a run for his money within the exact positions that I just told you. So what did I say to recap? The clinch positions, the grind, the wrestling back and forth, and then the tiring stamina of the striking that they're going to throw at each other based on the constant grappling, which once again will lead to a split decision from one guy or the other. That's the official prediction on that particular fight. So now, moving on with the last topic at hand. UFC 302, which is going 303, which is now replaced by Alex Pereira and Jiri. Is this good for business? I mentioned earlier that it is. Because if Jiri was to win, great upset, everybody is happy, they got their money's worth, including the people that paid 5 figures to sit in the front row. Alex Pereira, if he was to win, great. We add on more to his legend. And by the way, being that Conor McGregor is sort of out of the picture, guess what? You can fill in those spaces with somebody like Alex Pereira, who is a double champion. not in the way that Conor was, but now has an opportunity to maybe move up on the heavyweight stage and maybe grab a belt on that side and solidify his legendary status just based off of the catapult from this particular fight. In which, why did he take it? Because he wanted to stay busy. And he wants to come back in November. So guess what? That only is a plus side for the UFC, because guess what? The Conor McGregor fight is always going to be there. But Alex Pereira has been there. And that's the reality of this particular subject at hand. So guys, that is all that I have for this particular subject. I hope you guys like and subscribe. That is my 20 minutes regarding some subjects that are really interesting in the world of hip-hop and in the world of combat sports. I hope you guys like and subscribe. Please hit that like and subscribe button. I really need the help so that I can become one of the biggest mixed martial arts channels. And why? I'll tell you why right now, because I believe that I deserve it. Why do I deserve it? Look at the way that I've conveyed 3 different messages for you guys. I don't have a pad in front of me. I take memory notes in my mind. I write it down on the description. I remember it. I can't even look at the description. And I'm giving you guys the best description to the 3 storylines that I had just conveyed to you. That alone deserves a like, a subscribe, and a share. But inshallah, I hope you do that with the kindness of your heart while I drop some of the hottest mixed martial arts contents the history of mankind has ever seen. Inshallah. I'll see you guys on the next one. And watch all of my videos and live